Hello, my name is Desiree, and I will be presenting alongside Elena on our project called It's More Than Math, Calories and Type 2 Diabetes. So, health is wealth. So essentially, calorie intake impacts the body's regulated response differently based on the type of calories consumed, affecting those with diabetes differently than others. So glucose and insulin are our body's way of breaking down sugar, and by doing so, sometimes our blood sugar levels can either increase or decrease, and we have to kind of remain in a balanced excuse me, we have to remain in a balanced level in order for our bodies to not develop chronic illnesses or disorders long term. And so on the screen here, we have a graph comparing non-diabetics and those with type 2 diabetes. The age range is from, the lowest is going to be 18 and the oldest is going to be 65. Sorry, excuse me. I'm a little sick. So within this age range, we can see that there is a gradual increase of those who develop type 2 diabetes as we age. And so from our understanding, when there is that lack of regulation from the body, then it overrides and our blood sugars will become imbalanced and our body will no longer be able to break down glucose effectively, and it will start to affect all the other body processes that our bodies go through.
It's important to understand what diabetes actually is. According to our research, diabetes is defined as, quote, a chronic condition marked by high levels of glucose in the blood caused by the body's inability to effectively produce or use insulin. Insulin is a hormone that allows glucose or sugar to enter the cell where it can be used for energy, and it also helps lower blood sugar levels after eating. Thanks to these cute little blood drops on screen here, we can see the comparison of blood glucose levels in non-diabetic, pre-diabetic, and diabetic individuals. The image shows normal blood ranges is typically between 70 to 100 milligrams per deciliter. Levels between 101 and 125 indicate pre-diabetes, and levels above 126 indicate diabetes. In a non-diabetic person, insulin works effectively to bring blood sugar back to normal after eating. But in someone who has type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance develops, meaning the body is no longer able to properly respond to insulin. As a result, glucose stays in the bloodstream longer instead of moving into cells where it actually belongs. This is important because constantly high blood sugar damages blood vessels, nerves, and this topic is really important because diabetes is increasing rapidly around the world. The chart here on this slide shows the projected diabetes cases across different regions in the years 2024 to 2050. As you can see, nearly every region is expected to experience a major increase in diabetes cases over the next few decades. Some regions, such as Southeast Asia and Western Pacific, show especially dramatic growth. According to Fiona Godley from the British Medical Journal, type 2 diabetes already affects nearly 10% of the world's adult population, and rates continue to grow rapidly. Diabetes is not just about blood sugar. It significantly increases the rate of heart disease, stroke, kidney failure, nerve damage, and blindness.
So not all calories are created equal, but calories are a fundamental unit of energy that our body uses, but it is how our bodies process these foods that actually matter. So on the right side of the screen, I have a little animation comparing whole foods to processed foods like a cookie or a candy. So one apple that is 100 calories is not, in nutritional value, it is not equivalent to gummy bears that are 100 calories. So although these two foods are 100 calories, our body is going to process it differently. So anything that has processed sugar, anything that is refined sugar, it will not give our bodies any nutritional value. It will give us temporary energy that can be easily used. But with whole foods, it's a lot better for our bodies because we're able to actually break down, extract nutritional value from these foods in order to maintain our body's structure, function. And a lot of these foods also provide some sort of like water. So for example, watermelon, they provide a lot of water to our, body, our muscles, our organs. And so, compare that to things that our body actually needs to gummy bears, which is just going to provide temporary and a very high spike of insulin. So, yeah. So, although both of them have the same calories, they do not have the same effect on our bodies that we actually need. I also want to add that someone who does experience diabetes of any kind does have some sort of insulin resistance where their body cannot produce the insulin on their own. And so a lot of the times that is why they're given medication or shots to kind of maintain that and basically remind their body that they need to be producing insulin. So a lot of the times if you give someone like sugar, like a Coke or, a gummy bear, this will trigger a response so that way their body could then digest the food and bring their blood sugar levels back to a balanced level, a temporary balance level.
Carbohydrates have the biggest impact on blood sugar levels. Many people assume that more calories automatically have a greater effect on the body, but that's not necessarily true. Food type matters more than calorie count alone. Research by Cambridge University Press found that dietary carbohydrates are the largest driver of blood glucose spikes after eating. In other words, carbohydrates, especially refined carbohydrates like white bread, soda, candy, and processed snacks, cause the biggest increase in blood sugar levels and insulin levels. This matters because people with type 2 diabetes already struggle with insulin resistance. Large glucose spikes force the body to release even more insulin, which can worsen metabolic stress over time. Studies also show that reducing carbohydrate intake can significantly improve HbA1c levels, which is a major marker used to measure long-term blood sugar control. Basically, HbA1c shows somebody's average blood sugar over the past few months. So even if two foods contain the exact number of calories, they can affect the body very differently.
All right, proteins. So digestion of proteins help our bodies remain satiated longer and aid in bodily functions. Individuals with diabetes benefit from a protein-rich diet because it slows digestion, prevents blood sugar spikes, and maintains blood glucose levels. So proteins are made up of amino acids, and this will help our bodies to repair muscle, repair tissue, and it also helps with balancing our hormones. And it's just overall really good for your body to have a lot of fuel when doing strenuous activities. And as someone who has diabetes, it's a really, really great way for them to have at a balanced rate, a good amount of protein so that way their body can trigger insulin. But it has to be maintained at a certain parameter so that way they do not trigger an insulin spike, because that could be unbeneficial to them. So a lot of the times with our bodies or any function, you have to remain in a certain homeostatic level in order for your body to not have too much of something or too little of something. And so we kind of have to remain in this little tangle of a balance so that way our bodies can get the necessary nutrients and go through the proper functions that it needs to in order to thrive.
As we can see on this slide, we're going to be focusing on fats and their role in glucose metabolism. Unlike carbohydrates, fats have very little immediate effect on blood glucose levels. Instead of causing sharp insulin spikes, fat provides slow and more steady energy over time. Fats are broken down into fatty acids and used primarily for long-term energy storage and metabolism. Because of this, food higher in healthy fats generally do not place the same stress on the body's insulin system. However, fats still influence metabolism and insulin signaling because they change how the body stores and uses energy. Some fats, especially excess saturated fats, can make cells respond less effectively to insulin over time, which can contribute to insulin resistance. This reinforces our main point that the body processes calories differently depending on where those calories are coming from. So what should people actually do with this information? One major takeaway is that you cannot simply outrun a poor diet through exercise alone. While physical activity, yes, is important, nutrition quality matters just as much. When we talk about eating healthier, we're not only talking about reducing calories, we're also talking about improving the quality of those calories by limiting highly processed foods and refined sugars. Processed foods are a major issue because they are often high in refined carbohydrates that rapidly increase blood sugar and worsen insulin resistance over time. Healthier eating patterns that focus on whole foods, balanced proteins, healthy fats, and controlled carbohydrate intake can actually help improve insulin sensitivity and stable blood glucose levels. So rather than focusing only on calorie quantity, people should also pay attention to how food affects their body hormonally and metabolically. On this slide here, we can see some of the highlights of technology currently being developed to improve diabetes management. Researchers also are developing insulin and glucagon delivery systems that automatically respond to changes in blood glucose. These technologies are important because they move diabetes care towards a more personalized and responsive approach instead of relying entirely on manual blood sugar management. This diagram here shows how the hybrid patch responds to blood sugar when it becomes too low, which is known as hypoglycemia. The patch contains glucagon, which is a hormone that raises blood sugar levels and works opposite to insulin. On the left side of the diagram, glucose levels are low. In this environment, the material inside the patch swells, allowing for glucagon to be released more easily. Once released, glucagon signals the liver to release stored glucose back into the bloodstream, helping blood sugar return to a safer level. On the right side, when glucose levels rise again, the structure shrinks and slows glucagon release. This prevents the body from releasing too much glucagon when it's no longer needed. Essentially, this patch is designed to automatically sense low blood sugar and respond in a way that mimics what a healthy pancreas naturally does. Here we can see on this diagram, it shows the insulin side of the hybrid patch and shows how it responds to high blood sugar or hyperglycemia. Insulin lowers blood glucose by helping sugar move from the bloodstream into cells where it can be used for energy. On the left side of the diagram, glucose levels are lower, so insulin stays more tightly attached within the patch and less insulin is released. As glucose rises, shown on the right, glucose molecules interact with the patch material and weakens the forces holding the insulin in place. This allows for insulin to be released automatically. The release of insulin then lowers blood sugar levels by allowing glucose to enter the cell more effectively. Together, these two slides can show how this patch can release glucagon during low blood sugar and insulin during high blood sugar, creating a much more balanced and responsive system for diabetes management.
So in conclusion, whole foods and balanced meals are needed for the body to achieve optimal growth and repair. The same number of calories does not equate the nutritional value. And that goes back to the whole apple and gummy bears situation where same number of calories, different nutritional value that we can grab from them. Diabetes is a chronic condition and is affecting more individuals every year. And so as we saw in that graph, as people get older, there's like a bigger increase in those who have diabetes, as they age. And insulin and blood glucose levels regulation are so important for energy and preventing life-threatening complications. So as I said previously, our bodies have to kind of do a tango. They have to somehow balance, you know, getting the necessary nutrients and energy from our foods that we eat. And we also have to help our organs, such as the pancreas, we have to help them to allow us to break down the glucose and use that and store energy. So that way we are able to repair and help our hormones provide the necessary functions that the rest of our bodies need. And so if one thing is not properly functioning, then the whole process will be affected. And a lot of the times people who have type 1 diabetes, it tends to not only affect and grow into type 2, but sometimes it does provide other complications within the body that can cause long-term illness.